What's up everybody, Coach Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Overwatch video. And in this video, we're going to be breaking down the most dominant support right now and incredibly powerful in the meta. We have Ana, who all of a sudden got juiced to the gills with some crazy buffs. So we're going to break down exactly everything you need to know to master Ana, give you tips and tricks on how to improve with Ana, and give you targeted meta tips so that you can succeed in this hog-filled meta. But I want to announce our Ana Paintball Tournament, which is going to be Wednesday the 21st, this Wednesday, and we're going to be giving away some good prizes. We're going to be having a lot of fun on stream, so make sure you follow my Twitch in the links down below so you don't miss out on this event. Now, the first thing that we need to talk about with Ana is her Biotic rifle. So 75 damage or healing over about half a second, which means for any character that is 225 HP or less, outside of getting some form of mitigation or healing, you're going to be able to kill them with 3 shots of the Biotic rifle, but some characters it will be 2, like Mini Diva or Tracer. Now, the Biotic rifle is incredibly powerful at putting pressure on enemies through damage. Realize that damaging more is something that you should be doing on Ana purely because of the amount of value you get by simply putting damage here or there on targets. Not only can you get occasional pickoffs and actually pressure out targets from very far ranges because of no fall off on the weapon, but also simply dealing damage to enemies that are really far in the back line forces them to back up, respect you and your damage, and makes Ana a much bigger threat than purely a heal bot in the back line. Now, with Ana's primary fire, you need to understand the distinction between scoped and unscoped. First off, when you are scoped in, you will have a 65% movement speed debuff for scoping, which is going to be important for quick scoping. We'll talk about that in a second. And additionally, when you're scoped in, your primary fire is going to be a hit scan fire, and when you're not scoped in, it's going to be a projectile fire with travel time. Now, when you're zoomed in that hit scan fire, you will have a tracer, so enemies will be able to see where the bullets are coming from, making it easier to identify you if you're trying to heal someone from behind cover. So definitely keep that in mind if you're trying to not give away your position. But the most important distinction is that when you are zoomed in inside this triangle, if your allies are inside this triangle that you see when you're zoomed in, you can heal anyone inside it. You do not have to be perfectly precise when you're actually zooming in to heal your allies, meaning that hitting heals on your allies with your scope is really easy and consistent, and something that you should be practicing immensely. One of the biggest mistakes I see on Ana is people just lazily healing their allies. They're not quick scoping and they're missing the projectile fire a large percentage of the time. And yes, it's okay to pump heals into your ally if you're barrel stuffing them from behind or if you're confident that you will not miss, but make sure that you hit the majority of heals that you are going for. Because when you're trying to heal, you should be deliberate and consistent, and when you're trying to damage, you should be the same thing. And it's really important that you nail this down right, because if you waste a ton of time trying to heal one target, that leaves you less opportunity to actually make proactive plays with your damage as well. So if you're going to do anything on Ana, I want you to do it intentionally and not be lazy while doing it. Next up, let's talk about the sleep dart. Now, the sleep dart is actually going to do 5 damage, and you can occasionally get a kill with this fast-moving projectile. Now, it's going to have a 15-second cooldown, which means it's pretty punishing for just throwing it out and wasting it, but if you get a legitimate value with it, it can be a pick all by itself. Now, it's going to move about half as fast as the Biotic rifle projectile at only 60 meters per second, comparably to 125 from the Biotic rifle projectile fire. Now, the first tip I got to give you is a kind of obvious one, but it's important, and I want you to practice. Places like Triad Free-For-All are great to practice against dive targets that are going to be on top of you, because realize that oftentimes you have to hit a sleep dart when you're under an immense amount of pressure, but pressure oftentimes actually makes you mechanically worse. So you have to be your best mechanically during your most pressure-filled time when you're most likely to make a mistake. The only way to actually master this is through repetition to become confident and cool, calm, and collected under pressure. Now, I will say, don't throw out your sleep darts reactionarily. Oftentimes, when a Winston jumps in on you, for instance, there's going to be a time frame where you can still take damage and set up for the optimized sleep dart. Oftentimes, Anas will just completely panic, miss that sleep dart, and while they still have 125 HP in the bank, it doesn't matter because they no longer have the means to protect themselves. Remember, at the end of the day, life is a resource, but hitting that sleep dart can be the end of your opponent's life altogether, so it's okay if you hit that sleep dart at a less life total if you're going to set up for actually hitting it as opposed to just completely whiffing it. Now last up, I understand that teammates around you are going to be waking up some of your sleep targets, but the number one tip I'll give you is just pinging targets the second you sleep them. Not only does Ana say a voice line that lets your team know, hey, don't wake up the goddamn sleeping target, but at least you'll get some people to shoot towards that way. If people do end up waking them up, you'll actually have some amount of focus fire or peel after the fact, so at the very least, you probably will get the kill. Now, the next ability we got to talk about is Biotic Grenade. It's going to do 60 damage to enemies, and it's going to do 100 healing, and it's also going to anti-nade enemies for 4 seconds. Now, it's going to be on a 10-second cooldown, so it's not quite as punishing for using it as opposed to the Sleep Dart on a 15-second cooldown, but still a pretty hefty time. Now, Nade will actually go through full HP targets of your team, but realize that even if your teammates have only received 1 damage, they will actually just eat the entire nade. So oftentimes you want to set up a flight path for your nade that goes completely around your allies if that's not your intention. Now, last but certainly not least, you got to remember that it gives you a 50% more healing when you hit someone with the Biotic Grenade, which can allow for several things. Either healing up a target to full very quickly with the nade and pumping a couple of heals in them, or giving you the flexibility to nade multiple members of your team, pump each one of them once just like they're the homies, and you're going to have them all up to max HP very, very quickly with pretty low time spent on your part. Now, specifically, anti is the true value that Ana gets in this current meta. Healing is very, very powerful, but putting a target under a no-heal anti-nade gives you a huge opportunity to punish them regardless of what character they are or how much healing the enemy team has. Now, while I do think that healing yourself or your team can be done in a dire pinch, remember that antis, large antis that don't get cleansed, win team fights because of how strong anti-nade is. Now, I say that don't get cleansed because the number one counter to Ana is definitely Suzu, so it's really important for you tracking Kiriko Suzu, making sure that she's not in a situation where she can easily override the impactful nade that you created. Oftentimes, a very impactful sleep will actually bait out a Suzu, giving you an opportunity to get a really impactful nade. This is why every single ability on Ana comes together to be very, very important, and you can't afford to waste even a single ability. Now, the next thing that we need to talk about is Nano Boost. Nano Boost is going to give you a 50% damage buff. It's also going to give you a 50% damage reduction, whoever has the damage boost on it, and 25 instant healing, and it's going to last for 8 seconds. This is a very, very powerful ultimate, giving you the flexibility to combo with teammates, giving them more power, like in a Reaper Death Blossom or a Nano Blade, but also allowing you to keep a teammate alive in a pinch, use it as a form of peel, or give your teammates additional sustain. Combined with the nade, you can instantly heal up a tank from very, very low to max HP out of nowhere when enemies are already pressing them and thinking that they're going to be able to kill them, overextending on maybe a Rhine for you to bail them out. Now, the big question though is tempo or combo. What is the proper way to use a Nano? And what scenario should you try to use it for tempo or save it for a combo? Well, to answer that question, talk about top tips and big mistakes that Ana players are making. I'm excited to introduce PAZ, an amazing content creator, a top 500 Ana main, and someone who plays at the top collegiate level. He's going to teach us a little bit about Ana. So what's up, PAZ?
Hey, Coach Mills, thank you for having me. The number one thing I see Ana's messing up is within their grenade usage. If you are using the nade to strictly heal your team, you're doing it wrong. Look to be aggressive with this ability as much as possible to anti your enemies, denying the healing they would receive. This sets up your team to either get more aggressive picks or stop the enemy from pushing entirely, essentially healing your team from all of the damage they would have taken had the effect not been in place. Secondly, make sure that you are not the one pushing cart on payload maps. Every now and then it is good if you can still see the fight from that position, but on maps like Dorado or Watchpoint, for example, it is imperative that you maintain control of the high ground. This sets you up for easier anti-nades and safer damage opportunities in general. The last mistake lower level Ana players make is to use both of their cooldowns aggressively without knowing that safety is guaranteed. If I know that there is a tracer waiting for my sleep dart to be used, I cannot just throw it around whenever I want. Instead, I want her to always acknowledge the threat of the ability, which naturally forces her to be less aggressive towards me. Moving on, what really distinguishes the good from the great on Ana? Building upon sleep dart, keeping track of the enemy ultimates, and holding sleep to shut them down is incredibly valuable. Common instances of this situation include Genji, Soldier 76, Pharah, Roadhog, and more within the game. Secondly, playing on high ground is one thing, but understanding how to play off of it is important as well. High ground is strong as it gives you aggressive angles that are safer, but it can also be bad for you and your team if they're not with you. In short, you stay on high ground until a sniper forces you away, a monkey, diva, or other tank pressures you off, or if a Genji dashes on you. Once any of these things happen, typically you can drop off high ground and back into your team. Lastly, understanding Nano and its uses outside of the common combos like Winston or Blade is what truly sets apart the great from the best of the best. Know that if you are winning a fight with the ability, you are getting the value that you should get out of it, and that is just facts. If the enemy Genji is pressuring your friendly Zenyatta with Blade and you are only a few points away from Transcendence, nanoing your friendly support is a fantastic play, as it salvages a fight that would have otherwise been lost. It isn't every day that players pull the trigger on this decision, but if you can master the timing, you will definitely carry games, and people will thank you for it. Again, thank you so much to Coach Mills for this opportunity, and I'll see you all in the next one.
Well, thanks, PAZ, for being a part of this video. Really sick guy, amazing player, and great content creator. If you want to check out all of his content, it'll be in the description down below. I highly suggest it. The last thing that I need to talk about is how Ana lines up in this meta and things that you can incorporate if you want to dominate. This is your meta checklist for Ana. Now, remember, the big patch increased the nade timer and also increased Ana's damage, making her a double threat, allowing you to not only threaten damage and pickoffs, but have more impactful nades. When you do hit them, you're going to have entire fights won just off the back of that ability. Now, we talked about baiting out Kiriko's Suzu, and this is so important. You need to be constantly tracking what Kiriko's Suzu is at and when she has or has not used it. Listen for the sound cues or visually look and see when this Kiriko uses the Suzu, and in that moment, you have a window of time to go for a very impactful grenade. Oftentimes, every single time you see an impactful grenade, you're just going to want to go for it right away, but realize unless you can capitalize on it instantly, most of the time it's going to get out that Suzu, and that's not a fair trade because realistically, you want to allow your nades to truly win team fights and get pickoffs. Now, that doesn't mean every single nade has to get Suzu if there's an opportunity to get instant value from the nade. So, as an example here, let's say your hog hooks in the enemy hog. If you nade him in that moment, oftentimes it's going to cancel his breather, and if it cancels his breather, you're going to be able to potentially kill that hog before the Kiriko comes in to save him. You're going to have to know where the Kiriko's position is, how realistic it is for the Kiriko to actually come in and save him, and when and where you can use nade to get some cheeky value from underneath the Suzu, as opposed to baiting it out and trying to go over it. Now, another key aspect of Ana in general is her damage. Remember that you need to be pressuring out enemies as much as possible, and Ana has the means to do so. Enemies that are on the flank, putting in a tiny amount of damage in them will force them away. Pharah's in the sky, you have no fall-off damage, and you can 3-tap this character. Incredibly powerful, and you can put a ton of pressure on both Pharah and Mercy. This is a character that really wants to find the lanes to get a line of sight on the enemy backline and put in pressure in the enemy support as well. There's a ton of situations where Ana's can frag out, get impactful picks herself, or put enough pressure on the enemy team that will bait out cooldowns that can set up other plays that you're going to make down the line. Now remember, at the end of the day, you are the Roadhog Destroyer, and one of the best ways to actually shut down a Roadhog is using your sleep in a proactive manner to either cancel his breather or set him up for an easy hook from your team. Remember, oftentimes if the Roadhog is very out of position and put to sleep, the enemy Suzu will go out to wake him up, which leaves you an opportunity to hit your nade next. If you can land both abilities and they're both impactful, you can overload that Kiriko Suzu and find value even in the face of it. So this is incredibly important and one of the big things that you need to do if you want to achieve the true peaks on this character. Last up, the most important thing I have for you is your positioning on Ana. Remember, you do not want to be someone that is frontlining or even midlining. Oftentimes, you don't even want to be pushing the objective like PAZ said in his tips and tricks. Ana wants to play fundamentally adjacent from her team, either forcing enemies to come fight her in between her and her team and fighting her on her terms, or allowing Ana to be removed from the main primary fight that is happening on the tanks on the front line. Still capable of doing damage, aiding the team, and getting impactful nades, but not giving up her positioning overly much that allows Roadhogs to get easy kills on her, DPS to get easy joint fires on her, or just getting picked off altogether. Realize that because Ana has no movement ability, positioning is your only stand and the way that you try to stay alive. So if you're dying a bit too much in your games, analyze your positioning, note the points and times you die, and tell yourself if that was necessary if you simply would have been in a safer position, either around natural cover or back much further away. Now, altogether, this makes up the ultimate Ana guide that will help you improve very quickly, not only in this meta, but dominate on Ana for the foreseeable future. But if you have absolutely any questions, definitely let me know down below. Go check out PAZ in the description. He's an insane creator. And of course, make sure you don't miss the Ana Paintball Tournament on the 21st. Smash that follow button on Twitch so you don't miss out. Thanks so much for coming by, and I'll see you next time.